we say that we're building Zimbabwe one brick at a time because our 28-year vision, which is
28-year vision,
so
wow.
our strategy is to 2050. So if you look at our corporate company strategy to 2050, it's putting 1 billion bricks in the ground to create lifestyle estates where people can live, work, shop and play.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the JB Show. Yet again, another amazing podcast with another special guest. Today we're joined by Kenneth Sharpe. Guys, I don't even know how I got introduced to Kenneth, really. It's quite funny. Somebody reached out to me on Instagram, a guy from South Africa, right? Zimbabwe, yeah. Who said to me, Joe, I've got a really interesting guest who can come on your podcast. Now, I did some research on Kenneth. To be honest, at first, I thought it was just one of those DMs that makes no sense, but I checked out Kenneth. He's got an amazing story. So guys, today I'm joined by him and I want to talk to him about what he's done in his business and his life. So Kenneth, introduce yourself. I'm really happy for you to be here.
Thanks, Joe. It's really exciting to be on your podcast and I'm happy to be here too. I think it's interesting. I mean, in life, sometimes you have these hoaxes, people reaching out to you and you kind of ignore them, but sometimes you may pay attention to one or two. And I know what you mean. I have people always on social media messaging me and you look through them and you just don't know who's real out there. But this is one of those occasions that, has worked out great. So
yep.
I think we must thank Nyasha out there. And just a little bit about myself. I was born in Zimbabwe in 1973. So I'm actually turning 50 in a couple of months' time.
Wow.
And I've grown up there all my childhood and spent a lot of my life working there. I've also worked out of the country a lot. So I kind of, in my early 20s, started working outside of Zimbabwe. My wife is from the Ukraine. And I established businesses there. So I've done business in Ukraine for over 30 years. And I became a serial entrepreneur at the age of 17. So I've kind of been in business for a good 33 years now,
Yeah.
And
learned not a single grey hair.
A little bit coming,
Yeah.
a little bit coming. Yeah, but no, great to be here in Dubai, actually.
Yeah, amazing. So obviously you've got an amazing story and that's what I want to dig into a little bit now because, coming from a place where, there is trouble, Zimbabwe, we know the history of that part of the world and I want you to talk to me about your experience growing up and you've told me about being a serial entrepreneur, so dig into that for me a little bit and take me back.
Look, I think anything in life really has its challenges. There's ups and downs, you go through the valleys and the mountaintops of life and Zimbabwe is no different. We've had our own unique set of challenges and difficulties. In the early 70s, I was born in the 70s, so we're still in a civil war. Zimbabwe was fighting. This is now the black population getting back the freedom, the independence from the white population. So we had a white minority government. Prior to that, it was a British colony. And the white government under Ian Smith declared unilateral declaration of independence, UDI. And they were running the country. And the black people wanted to have the rights to vote and the rights to live wherever they wanted to be. So they actually had a war between the white and black populations. And the war went on until the late 70s. And finally in 79 there was a settlement, the Lancaster House Agreement it's called, where Robert Mugabe was elected the first black president. And President Mugabe ran the country for the first 10 years. He reconciled the white and black populations so we could have no more racial differences and things started working well. And then it kind of started going gradually downhill and he held on to power, he overstayed his welcome. And unfortunately he was thrown out of power 42 years later by his number two, who's currently the president. The military got involved. It was a very peaceful transition. It was the first time we had a kind of coup without any weapons, without any bullets fired, and the people went on the streets and demonstrated their rights, and eventually the president resigned. And the last kind of 4 years, the new dispensation, they called the president with his cabinet, have really been promoting Zimbabwe as a country that's open for business, welcoming investment, and really trying to get the country back off the ground because it had been run down really into the ground.
What do you mean run down? In what sense?
So economically, to give you an example, and there's a lot we can talk about today, but I'm just going to give you a little piece of it. The thing that we're most infamous about is that we had the highest inflation in the world, higher than Nazi Germany after World War II. So we had a $100 trillion note.
Oh, you know what? I heard about this, yeah.
$100 trillion on one note. And this is after they'd removed 13 zeros from the money. When they printed $100 trillion, it was worth about $200 US. And a month later, it was worth $2. And a day after, it was worth 20 cents. So we had like tens of thousands of percent inflations a month. We went into millions of percent inflations a year. So it's just incredible that we survived that. And part of that is it completely eroded the capital base. So it wiped out savings, it wiped out pensions, it wiped out capital base of banks, and it left us with basically nothing. So the whole country had to be recapitalized in 2009 when the country dollarized, and all the capital had to be brought back into the economy. And unfortunately, at the same time, Mugabe had done a lot of things that the West didn't agree with. One of them was his land reform program, where he took away land from the white farmers. And this is one of the most productive sectors of our economy. They were about 40% of the economy. And overnight, it just became, completely inefficient. And our production went from, say, 3 million tons of maize a year down to 500,000 tons. So we didn't even have enough food for the people. So people were being hungry. There was a drought. There were sanctions put on the country. There was no capital. I mean, it was a disaster.
So when the government took the land away from the white people, what did he do with the land?
He redistributed to the black people.
And did they actually
So they became productive, but it took time because a lot of them didn't have skills, they didn't have access to capital. So it took probably about 5 to 10 years for them to become more productive. And today they're very productive. So in hindsight, it's not that he did it without benefit to those people who've benefited from the land. Mm-hmm. The way he did it was the problem. The way he went about it was just chaotic and completely illegal and unlawful, and the rest of the world just kind of cut off Zimbabwe. So we were in the press for all the wrong reasons. There was a lot of sensationalism published as well. But ultimately, the country is now in a situation where that is in the past. It's been put in the past. The new president's tried to address the imbalance by compensating those farmers who lost their land. And we're now moving forward as a nation. We're trying to rebuild the economy. We're trying to bring investment back in. And we're starting off from a very low base. But, the last 4 years have been pretty good.
So tell us about, there's so much to talk about that era. How did that affect you mentally, like growing up as a child? Because that must have been chaotic.
You make a choice in life. And you kind of say to yourself, at the end of the day, am I willing to participate? Am I willing to be part of this country as a citizen? Do I feel like I belong here? And as soon as you make that decision that you feel that you belong, regardless of your color, I sometimes joke with my black friends and say, you may have black skin, I may have white skin, but both our hearts are red and the blood is red that goes through them.
Yeah.
So my blood bleeds for my country, for my soul. I love my country. And I feel patriotic towards my country, and I'll do anything to make the country work. My whole mission in life is to emancipate the people economically, to create jobs, to bring in investment, to showcase Zimbabwe that we can be better than what we've done in the past.
And we're going to get to that, and I want to talk about this journey, but you told me that 17 years old you started your first business.
That's right.
So tell me about that business. What was it?
So the first business I went into was import-export, selling goods, and it was hardware to start with. And then I got into FMCG, foodstuffs, and started importing and distributing, representing agencies. And then this was like 91, 92. In fact, that's the first time I came to Dubai in 92. I was looking for stuff to buy cars. I was importing vehicles as well. Yeah. And my wife is from the Ukraine. That's a whole nother love story that I followed her back to the Soviet Union and brought her back to start a life in Zimbabwe. So I started business in the early 90s in Ukraine, and we were trading there as well. And one of my partners there had a bottling business manufacturing soft drinks and mineral water and alcohol. So we brought some of that plant and started a manufacturing business in Zimbabwe, a bottling business. And then over the years, I basically went into a lot of different businesses. Like I said, I probably had 100 different companies, maybe 30 plus partnerships in different sectors, different industries. And the last sort of 15 years, I'd say, I've really taken a focus to real estate. So today, my main portfolio is real estate. And then I complement it with some investment in IT, in tech startups, and in energy businesses.
When you talk about, growing up and, being 17, having your own business in a place like Zimbabwe, did you find you got a lot of support in terms of,
Not really.
No.
It was difficult. So. People didn't take me seriously. There's a saying, Mahatma Gandhi said, at first they laugh at you. So they didn't take me seriously, and it took a while for me to actually break through that. Especially in Zimbabwe, there was a community of white people that really controlled the economy. The old boys club, they'd call it, old school boys. And they didn't want new players in, it was their kind of thing.
Yeah, so, an established community.
Yeah, so it was difficult to break in, but I think I didn't rely on Zimbabwe as much as, fortunately, my wife being from Ukraine, there was a lot of opportunity there. So I actually made a lot more money in Ukraine than I did Zimbabwe.
Really?
And trading there was much easier. I got to mix with the people well, made really good friends. In fact, most of my best friends are from Ukraine. So I found myself kind of synthesizing or assimilating kind of in a way Ukrainian culture, the food, the cuisine, the language. I speak fluently.
You speak Ukrainian?
I speak Russian fluently.
Wow. Do you know what? Like, that's such a beneficial language to be able to speak, right?
It changed my outlook. And I think one of the things I wanted to say about being in Zimbabwe is just sticking it out.
Yeah.
Like anything in life, it's about focusing in one thing and sticking it out to see it through to the end. So you've got to have that gut perseverance. You've got to be willing to take on the challenge head on. And it comes with, territory comes with difficulties.
So you've built a resilience, and you've experienced hardships. I'm sure you've experienced failures in business. Like,
of course.
Tell me about one of those. Tell me about your worst one.
Well, there's several, but I think, I've had 2 or 3 bankruptcies in my life.
Yeah.
Only one complete bankruptcy where I had one business at that time and it went bankrupt. And I was personally bankrupted because I was a guarantor to the business. So I lost everything. And I was probably about 21 then, maybe 20. And the second one was kind of a trading business that went bankrupt. It was a bad decision. We invested in a wholesale business, a trading business. And I've had another business that closed down. So overall, I think, if I was to take a number, probably it's 10 or 20% of failures in my life. And it's not that I'm embarrassed or ashamed of them. I think failures is what makes you. Nelson Mandela said, "Don't judge me by the number of times that I fall down, but rather by the number of times that I get up again." And that's the thing, are you willing to get up again? Are you going to let that thing that happened to you defeat you or define who you are as a person? No, you're more than that. You're more than those failures. And the failures is what makes you stronger. So I'm quite a deep philosophical Christian. My values as a Christian. And I believe that God makes all things work for your good. So those things you're going through are not necessarily very good at the time. You don't like them. They're difficult. The challenges are there. But if you persevere, have a spirit of perseverance, and you allow yourself to see the glass as half full rather than half empty, then you have enough positivity in you to carry on.
Yeah, that's some amazing words, because I can relate them to what I've been through. I'm 26. I've not had as many businesses as you, but I have traveled, going to multiple countries, trying to set new things up. And the amount of times that I've almost give up and just thought, I'm just going to go back to the UK and give up. But something inside of me just told me to just keep going. But, and keeping going, like, I can't say it was the best decision I made, to keep going. But, how did you cope with it mentally? Because sometimes I was not able, I guess I was able to cope with it mentally, but there were times where I just didn't know how to get myself out of this like rut.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. And I think today's youth, whether it's Gen X or millennials, we're all kind of fitting into that bracket right now. And even the new kind of the alphas coming out, I feel like because there's so much going on in the world, your attention span is limited, your time is limited, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got to stay focused. And there's so much distraction out there. It's very stressful. It leads a lot of people into depression and anxiety. And my way of coping with these things is really staying focused, absolutely focused. In Africa, where I'm from, we often talk of the lion hunt, and it's the lionesses that kill the game. And when a lioness chooses her target, she never loses sight of it. So there might be other easier ones, prey running right in front of it, but she won't lose track of that target until she gets it. So I think first thing is focus. Second thing for me is having that ability to see the glass, half full rather than half empty. And always having an optimistic view of life that tomorrow things will be better, even if they're difficult today. And lastly, probably most importantly, is discipline. Without discipline in life, you've got nothing. So I think you've got to discipline yourself and come to the point in your life where you're comfortable in setting up something that means a lot to you and following that discipline. I think the most important discipline we can learn is the discipline of restraint. And restraint helps you to see what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. So I believe in testing your boundaries. Mm-hmm. One of the things I'm doing right now is actually fasting, and it's not something I'd normally talk about, but I'm on my last day of fast. So tomorrow, I've been fasting for 3 weeks.
How did you find that?
It's good. I mean, it's detoxed me. I feel light. I mean, I really feel great. My whole system has been regenerated. There's a science in it these days. The telomeres get extended. It rejuvenates your youth, and it gives you a lot of inward reflection time. So I reflect inwardly and spend the time in prayer and scriptures. But I think the most important thing I wanted to say is it's a test for me. Do you know you'll get to the 21 days? If you start out believing that maybe you won't, you never will. But if you're disciplined enough to keep pushing yourself and testing yourself, when you get to that point where you've actually done it, you realize that I can do it. And that brings yourself back to have confidence in yourself. So that discipline is linked to having confidence, which is the last thing I'll say. You need confidence to move forward in business, in life.
Yeah.
You need to believe in yourself, you know. You were created to do something good, and you have the ability to do it.
The point that you said about restraint and like, putting yourself in situations and trying other things, it's something that I try to stress to people, because I've tried, and I'm sure you have as well. Sometimes I've tried like 3 different businesses at once, and at some point I'm burning out and I'm thinking, oh, why am I trying so many things? And to be honest, it's good when I actually find that one thing to put my focus into. And I'm a big believer in, not just being constrained to one thing your whole life. Like the average 9 to 5, most people do all their life, and they wonder why life isn't giving them the fulfillment what they want.
Right.
And what I'm trying to say from this point is that I've tried a lot of different things, and it's crazy because I was an engineer. I then quit my job and became a personal trainer. The COVID happened, I became an online coach. Then after being an online coach, I started videography because I enjoyed filmmaking. I did filmmaking in Marbella, moved to Dubai, started doing filmmaking in real estate, and then now I'm a real estate broker. And to be honest, if I had not tried every single one of those things, I'd have never have known what I'm good at, because I tell you now, 5 years ago, I did not think when I was an engineer, I was going to end up working in Dubai as a real estate agent. And if I'd have not put myself in them situations where I tried everything, I wouldn't be here where I am today. And that's everything you just told me, I completely resonate with. It's amazing, isn't it? And it brings me on to what we were just talking about. You in business now, you're on a mission to succeed and do something, pretty important. So tell me about that mission.
Yeah, so the story starts out kind of, a bit about my own philosophy of life is, and it's related to what you were talking about earlier. Why am I in Zimbabwe? What has my experience been in being there? What is it that's kept me there? And it was in 2014, I was in Kuala Lumpur, and a friend, a Jewish friend, said to me, there's a guy called Hillel, who I'd not heard of before. He's a Jewish philosopher. And he said something like, if not me, then who? And if not, in fact, I'll read it to you. If not for myself, who is for me? And if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, then when? And I didn't know about that saying, but I had actually said prior to him in a sentence, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? Which kind of means the same thing. So if it's not me in Zimbabwe who's going to make this difference, then who is it? If it's not me and you, in other words, all of us in Zimbabwe, then who is it? No one is going to come from the outside and make a difference in Zimbabwe. We have to do it. And if it's not now, then when is it? Why put it off? If we not do it today, then why aren't we doing it? And that's the same thing for you and everyone else. If it's not you, then who is it? And if it's not today, then when is it? Mm-hmm. So you make that decision, and then you say, right, that's it, I've got to do it. So I became committed to seeing the countries change in a positive economic way, regardless of what's happening politically, and there's been difficulties. But I really am committed to the vision of bringing Dubai to Zimbabwe. That is really what we're trying to do in property.
Oh, wow, okay.
So when I say that the buildings that have been put up so far have been, old style English colonial kind of design. South Africa, which is just our neighbor, has done a lot of modern stuff. It hadn't really come to Zimbabwe yet. So I started a couple of years back and had this. We've got a big land bank. We're very fortunate that we've got a big land bank that we're developing. And it's definitely going to take several decades to develop this land bank. Mm-hmm. In fact, it will probably take beyond my generation. So we believe the business is a multi-generational business that I'm creating. And we've found that the people of Zimbabwe appreciate quality and they love modern things. So we're bringing what's called, I would say, affordable luxury.
Okay, so your plan is to do a lot of development. I remember when we spoke on the phone yesterday, you were telling me about, Sheikh Mohammed's vision from Dubai, and you want to replicate something like that.
Exactly.
Because I can't, to be honest, I don't even know Zimbabwe in the top of my head. I actually have some very close friends, and you know what? He's gonna love this podcast. He's a black friend of mine, Lubamba. He's from Zimbabwe, grew up there, and to be honest, he's super inspirational, and he's gonna love this podcast. But he shows me pictures when he was back there. Right. It just looks like a bit derelict.
So, there are parts of it where you'll find potholes and damaged roads and damaged infrastructure, and water's not coming to the house for sometimes months. People don't have, in some places in years haven't had water. Electricity is a continuous challenge. But there is the good of it. So we do have roads that have been repaired. We do have rehabilitation. We've got a new dam, Kunsvi Dam. It's a huge new dam that's been opened. They are bringing in, there's just not enough of it. We don't have enough investment. We need tens of billions of dollars to rebuild Zimbabwe.
So you planning on finding investors to do that in
Of course, I mean,
yeah.
the capital of the country is not enough.
No, of course
So we
not.
have to bring capital in from outside. We have to attract investors from outside. And coming back to my vision, my strategy, in fact, I dropped out of school at 17, as you heard. So I had no formal education. I was in high school. But as it turns out, about 3 years ago, I got invited to go to Harvard Business School to study for a 3-year program.
Wow.
And I did what's called the OPM, which is like an MBA program for business owners. And you graduate and you become an alum, so it's a degree. And you do a lot of case studies. I did about 140 case studies. And what I was really fascinated in the case studies was that most of my practical experience was more or less correct. So it was like reaffirmation, confidence building, to say what I've been doing is right. There was focus in certain areas, and one of them is talent. So we really are building a culture of excellence in our business. We have a high performance culture of excellence. And the second thing was strategy, which I didn't take so seriously before, but it's so important in every business to have a strategy so you know where you are now and you know where you're going in the future. And our strategy, what we call it, if it's a tagline, is rebuilding Zimbabwe one brick at a time. So we believe every brick we're putting in the ground is permanently there. It's like the saying I just saw on your wall from Roosevelt. Real estate doesn't move.
No.
It's a permanent investment.
Yeah.
So we say that we're building Zimbabwe one brick at a time because our 28-year vision, which is
28-year vision,
so
wow.
our strategy is to 2050. So if you look at our corporate company strategy to 2050, it's putting 1 billion bricks in the ground to create lifestyle estates where people can live, work, shop and play. So that lifestyle element where there's a gated community, where either there's a golf course or there's a park and people can go there and relax, play sports, enjoy themselves. There's homes around the facilities. And within that location, within that node, which is a city within a city in some places, these are big nodes. One of them is like 500 acres. The other one's 200 hectares. They're big pieces of land. And within that node, people can have offices to go to work in. They can have homes where they can live in. They've got shopping malls where they can shop. And they've got these recreational facilities where they can play. So they can actually live within there and never leave that microcosm. So that's what we want to bring to Zimbabwe, is these high quality estates, lifestyle estates.
So touching on that, obviously, Dubai, one of the main reasons so many people are attracted to it is the safety. And obviously, there's a massive safety culture. Women can, not have to be worried at night. Guys can wear Rolexes and not worried about getting, stolen and money not being robbed out of their houses. But if a country like Zimbabwe is going to implement, that kind of safety, what do you think would need to happen for it to be like that?
Well, let's go back to why I was inspired by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed's vision. I was back here in Dubai in March this year at the expo. We had actually sponsored our musician, Japreza, who's got about 1 million followers. He's a very popular guy, and he's our brand manager or brand ambassador for the company. So he's our brand ambassador for West Prop, and we said to him, bring your whole troupe, we'll pay for them to come out to Dubai and put on a show at the National Day. So we sponsored that event. And when I went around Dubai showing him the different sites, we visited just a few clicks from here, Jumeirah Palm. And on the Palm, they've got this viewing platform and they take you through the video and show you the whole thing. And I saw the story of how Sheikh Mohammed told his friends when he was a kid, he was playing on the beach and they were laughing at him and he was saying, I'm going to build these sandcastles in the water.
Yeah.
He said, you can't build sandcastles in the water. Well, he did exactly that, right? He's created tens of billions of dollars of real estate on the Palm Jumeirah, which is one of the most prestige locations in the world now. But that land was reclaimed from the sea. It didn't exist before. So that vision of seeing things into the future is really what it's all about. In fact, the Bible says a nation without a vision perishes. And this is a fine example of a nation with a very strong vision that's flourishing. Whether you call it the Wild West or you call it the New Frontier, this place is happening. There's almost no other place like it on earth.
No, you're right. You're right, and the growth, and listen, everyone I have on the podcast, we talk about the growth and like the way that Dubai is growing as a city, and it is becoming one of the key places to be in this world. I mean, I once spoke to a guy, his name is Ken, he's got his own radio show, and he was from the States, and he was saying like Dubai is the new LA, Dubai is the new, New York. It's becoming its own, like it's becoming in the top tier of places to be right now, and with the safety and everything else, it makes it the best place to be, apart from the summers getting too hot, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it is almost like an amazing place to be. So that brings me on to a question is, are you in Dubai now to sort of get inspiration to take back, or are you here to look for investors? Why are you here?
So I came here because we won a property award. We've been winning a lot of awards in the last 2 years, locally and internationally. And this was actually the most prestigious property award, the Laughton International Properties Award. About 70 judges, 4 of them were British lords. I'm sure you'd like that.
Yeah.
One of them was at the award ceremony. So we won the best developer in Zimbabwe for 20 plus units. And we came to receive the award and spent the day here. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. The other reason is, I'm looking at opportunities with some of my Ukrainian partners for a while now here to develop something. And it's a good place to do business. It's a good place to be located. So we're looking at a more permanent structure here as well. And that's one of the opportunities that I'm exploring outside of Zimbabwe.
Yeah, so do you think you could live here?
You know, personally, I think home for me is Zimbabwe.
Okay.
But I could definitely see this as a second destination. Like if I had business here, then I would definitely spend more time here. And I've had this love-hate relationship since the early 90s. I think the first time I came here was somewhere in 1992. And there was nothing. I mean, you know, Sheikh
There's
Zayed Road
pictures of it. It's just like...
I was there. You know, I stayed in the Holiday Inn Crown Plaza, which was the most kind of tallest tower at the end of Sheikh Zayed Road. And after that, from there to Marina, it was just desert. There was nothing. I mean, I think Marina only came up in sort of 2002 or 2005, which is, 17 years ago. So a lot of Dubai is really new, and what they've done in the last 20, 30 years is just remarkable. It's phenomenal. As I said, there's no other place in the world this is happening.
I know, and you've said you've seen it evolve. So where do you see it going in the future? Like, what more can be done in this country?
I think what's got to happen is, it's all about confidence. Money and risk mitigation is all about how you measure it. And so long as there's confidence here and the government continues doing what they're doing, I believe the only way it's going to go is up, is continue to go up. I think it's still got a lot of space for growth. And I think with what's happening in the rest of the world, people need to see that the environment is friendly, it's easy to do business, the tax base is good. I think those things need to stay. What the government can do is start getting more foreign people to take ownership. Whether they do that through some kind of citizenship program. I know they've been promoting visas recently,
the golden visa.
Golden visa and remote working visa. Those are great things because people feel more involved and they want a sense of belonging. So I think the next step, if this was to become the new America, if I can put it that way, which is what America did, right? America had nothing, they brought in people and they made Americans feel like they had ownership in the country. So I think the next step is that step. And I do believe the government is going down that road. I think over the next sort of 10 or 20 years, we'll see more of that happening. And I really believe Dubai is there to stay. There's a lot of substance in the market. I heard it today that 80% of the transactions this year are in cash for property, only 20% mortgages. That means that it's not a fake or a artificial, fictitious market. It's a real market where people have taken their savings and cash and put it into property. That doesn't change. It's at the bottom of the market. Of course, there'll be ups and downs, but I don't believe the bottom of the market would be as affected in some markets where there's high debt and high gearing, which are more susceptible to changes. Where there's a lot of equity. That's real money invested.
It is, and a lot of people are concerned. I know a lot of people that have talked about not investing now. It's the wrong time. The market's going to crash. But if you look at anywhere else in the world, Dubai is still massively undervalued, and there are more and more people coming over here all of the time, investing that cash and investing that money into Dubai, where people are actually leaving these other parts of the world because there's so much going on, like with the inflation, war, unsettlement, energy crisis. All of this is going on, but yet Dubai is still flourishing, right?
I would say Dubai is, and there's different segments of the market, but if you were to look at the premium market, I would say probably it's still 50% discount. I mean, we hear 100 million dirham, I heard 600 million.
Yeah, yesterday, those are big 600 numbers. Million dirhams.
That's a big number out there for a property, right? Those are like world records. There's probably 10 in the world. So those numbers are there, and I think even at that level, it's still probably 50% discounted. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it double in the premium market. And then, of course, you've got everything down to, I don't know, what is an entry-level product in Dubai? Probably 1,000 dirhams a square foot or less?
Less than that. So in terms of price per square foot, you look at places near the ocean like your Palm Jumeirah, your Jumeirah Bay, all the places down there is going to be more expensive, and that's what people, are wanting more of, and that's what's in demand. Yet they've got so much land to build backwards, but it means that there's something for everyone, You've got your entry-level investors that can invest in places like JVC and still get a great rental yield, because not everyone can now afford to live in places like the Marina or downtown. So that's what I love about it, and the developments now that are happening, as you've seen, it's crazy growth right now.
And I heard today from a friend here who's lived here all his life, the government is now developing tens of thousands of new villas that we don't even see. It's not seen, but there's tens of thousands of units coming up.
Yeah, because the demand for luxury has gone through the roof, with all the Russian investors, the Ukrainian investors, all investors, even from China now, because everywhere there's a problem. Like China's got that really tight COVID restriction rule, you've got the war in Russia and Ukraine. So a lot of people are moving their money. And then all of a sudden, there's not that many ready villas that are available to the market. So all of a sudden, all of these developers are coming into our office, for example, and being like, yeah, we've got these brand new luxury villas that are going to be launched. We're going to be launching 500 of them in here, 10,000 here, or whatever. And, the designs, like, they will blow your mind. Like, every time you look at one, it just looks more futuristic and amazing. But the problem is that they're not going to be ready till 2025.
Right.
Because they're building communities. And that's why I see this as an opportunity to, one, either buy in areas with rundown villas that need renovation, completely rip it out. My last guest is doing exactly that. Or, obviously, buy land and do it quicker than the other developers. Because the developers don't launch everything until everything's done.
It's a community they're building, right? Lifestyle.
Exactly.
State.
So they're building a community, but from start to finish, I mean, in a year you can get it done or less. Buy a plot of land, build whatever.
So that's the low-hanging fruit available.
That's the low-hanging fruit available. It's either land or renovation, distress deals, that's what I like to call them.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned that this might be something that you could be interested in.
Definitely. Something I'd look into.
Yeah. So listen, Kenneth, it's been great to have you on. And I want you to, what have you got to say on the podcast before we wrap up? Because I'm sure you've got some sort of interesting message to give to the world, who are hungry and inspired, Tell us.
So I would say for Zimbabwe and Dubai, I would look at the French poet and novelist Victor Hugo, who said, "Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come." The time has come for Dubai, we can see that, and the time is coming for Zimbabwe.
Amazing. I'm really, really excited to see what's going to happen over the next few years. And I'm really grateful that we connected because, like I said, guys, the power of social media can be incredible. And I think it's important that, using it to your advantage can sometimes be so powerful, you know what I mean? And going forward, I would love to see Kenneth's journey and get him on the podcast even in the next 6 months, and I'd love to see the progress. Cool. And maybe I might even take a trip out to Zimbabwe.
That's it. We'll do it in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a deal.
I'll tell you what, deal.
That's a deal.
I'm going to come to Zimbabwe and we're going to make our next podcast. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll leave all the links below to Kenneth's website and social media too, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.